a retirement. Well, I think we were all kind of waiting for all year, but the NHL's leader in games played, San Jose.
Disrespect.
Okay,
The
let's just
disrespect.
we'll throw this out. By the way, yeah, Leafs legend, Panthers. No, not Panthers. That's Thornton.
Penguins.
Yeah, Leafs legend, Hurricanes legend. Never forget that. Penguins legend, but no, truly, probably the best San Jose Shark to ever play the game. Patrick Marleau is officially retired. Really, really beautiful piece written about him. Also, his speech to the Sharks fans of his family, they were really, really good. I thanked hockey at the end of it. Thinking of Patrick Marleau, when I say Patrick Marleau, guys, we'll start with Alex and to Dan here. What comes to mind? What do you remember about his career?
Despite the controversy that surrounded it at the time, the games played. Like I think, you look at Gordie Howe and you like, man, like the greatest, in my opinion, the greatest player of all time, his idol was Gordie Howe. Wayne Gretzky's idol was Gordie Howe. And for him to pass a record and games played record, I don't think I think that's a big thing. I think, especially for the players, but when you're talking about a guy who's now retiring and finishing first, I think that's very, very impressive.
I guess for me, it's two things. I think the first thing is his playing, is the consistency there. He was a major part of my childhood, major part of me growing up. And, like once you get older and we realize how many games he actually played, consecutively, it's kind of crazy. For me, the biggest memories are that elite Sharks team that we really felt that, they're just on the cusp. They're always competing every year. And one thing he did mention too in his Player Tribune article is the Olympics team. So when the Sharks were stacked, he was one of four Sharks actually that made onto the Team Canada. And then 2014, he was still a bit of the older guy, but he was still brought in to be that big guy that could still skate a lot. And, he really kept up with the young guys. I really like that, even though they were short stays, because he's forever a Shark, but for all the short stays he had, he was very appreciative of what Toronto gave. He was proud of playing for arguably one of the biggest markets. He even talked about how growing up on the farm in Saskatchewan, Marleau Lemieux was his favorite player. And then the fact that he got to play for Pittsburgh was even great too. So very appreciative guy, someone that apparently was a huge, huge locker room presence for everybody that played with him. And it's kind of weird. Like, I know 23 seasons, but it's like an NHL without Patrick Marleau is weird.
It is. We always talk about that old Sharks team and that locker room and that sort of great leadership nucleus they sort of had, and Patrick Marleau was right there. So he finishes his career, obviously 1,779 regular season games played. Look at the playoffs. It's 195. But beside that, 1,197 points, 127 separately in the playoffs, 566 goals. I don't think we need to have the same discussion like we did with Getzlab about being a Hall of Famer. I think it's pretty safe to say that Patrick Marleau is one. I don't think he's first ballot because he didn't win any championships in the NHL. Gold medals and that different. And it's really weird that he doesn't have any individual hardware. It's just very weird to actually look back on it. But just a tremendous player. It's weird to think that he's gone, and it's a damn shame that he didn't get a cup. I don't know if the Panthers can't figure it out, then maybe this is the end of Thornton, and to see both those guys drafted right next to each other, being gone without rings. It's like the same with Lundqvist and Luongo. It just doesn't feel right. But hell of a career. And hopefully he stays involved in the game somehow. But I mean, like, what a story. And the Sharks, I remember at the time, like, beside Pavelski, we also talked about, like, when Marleau left, I want to say maybe it was the same summer as Pavelski. It was a lot of it that they both left at the same time. And maybe by the time he came back, it just, maybe he wasn't the force to really help the Sharks get back on track, that and all the money locked up in their defense. But I'd imagine he has his number retired too, like as soon as possible. Do they have any other numbers retired? And maybe Doug Wilson?
Nolan? No, I don't know. Let me check.
Please do. I'd be interested to see if he's going to be Or maybe they just, what if him and Thornton are both gone by this summer and they do them together? That'd be a really nice touch because their just careers have been joined at the hip.
That would be. Pavelski left a year after.
Year after. Okay, never
or
mind.
a year after, or 2 years after, because I think the way it went, 2 years or 3 years.
It was a chain effect, like it was Marleau and then Thornton and Pavelski all within a certain amount of time. Like it was very,
years.
yeah.
I like to confirm the Sharks do not have any numbers retired.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so Patrick Marleau is probably going to be the first one.
Right.
And then maybe Jumbo Joe, depending on what's going on with him, isn't far behind. But interesting. But hell of a career. And get that number in the icon right up there. Really funny note, Daniel, I'm going to guess that you put this up there. The Californian icons retiring. So the Sharks have Marleau, the Ducks have Getzlaf, and then LA have Dustin Brown. Yeah. Brown's like a step below, but that's actually a really good, but also depressing note.
3 former captains of 3 expansion teams that they saw arguably their best runs in the 2000s and the 2010s. That all of them, I mean, the Sharks, they made it to the finals, but the Kings and the Ducks were able to win it. So it's kind of crazy to think backwards. Like we talk about how Gretzky grew the game in California, and then we look back now to these 3 former captains that were part of these amazing teams that we were able to see that, like the growth that we saw in California.
That's a very good point, Daniel. That's a very, very good point. And you got to think that all those 3 guys, probably because of how hard those California teams used to be. Remember, they used to joke it was the Death Valley road trip. Just like how much they probably hated playing against each other. But probably because hockey players are weird, the respect they would probably have for each other now. But man, just the old man's gone. And still has color in his hair, though. Maybe he dies, and who knows.